Hi, Adrian.
Hello, Lacey.
Okay, so today's been kind of a big day, kind of a weird day for everybody. So today is Russia invading Ukraine.
What is the
Um,
date, Lacey? Give us more details.
2/24/22. Okay,
Okay.
February 24th, 2022.
Awesome.
So as social media managers, there's just so much that unfolds on a day like this where there's this big world event happening and content and thoughts and opinions are all swirling around one big thing. So
hmm
we talk about what kind of things we can and should and could do as social media managers during this time. So I figure we might as well just have this conversation a little publicly and share it with people. So you okay
Yeah,
with that?
sounds great.
Okay. So we've got 3 points we want to go through. Um, and the first one we'll talk about is what to do with brand content on social
Mhm.
media during a day or a week like this, when something big happens and there's a big shift in uh, public discourse on social media. There's this big world event happening. What do we do with our content from a brand perspective? So with the clients that you have right now, how are you choosing what to do with your brand content on today and the next few days?
Well, it depends on the audience. The audiences definitely. I mean, in general, I think it's a good thing to pause it just for the first, like today. Pause any content. I had some scheduled content that's going out that's about a conference that is like it's not like
Timely.
brand, well, it's not timely, it's just general content. And that went live, and I mean, it's not great, but it's also not like the worst thing ever. It's like it already wasn't, I knew it wasn't going to get a lot of traction anyway. It's just kind of like an announcement. So first of all, I try to be like, all right, if stuff got out and I should have paused it, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
I don't run the Nike's social media accounts.
Right.
It's fine. Um, but I would pause anything that is depending on your audience, if you do have audience that is very hyper invested in Europe or European affairs, obviously that everyone is talking about that right now. And anything else coming across the feed, either people are going to ignore it, so you're not going to get very good results at all. And B, people actually might call you out and say, why are you talking about this right now? Um, I would worry
There's a bit
less
of
about, yeah,
tone deafness. There
yes.
can be, especially
Mhm.
that first piece seems important. It's like just knowing who your audience is, you
Yeah.
know? I had a discussion with a client today who we were planning content that's going to go out tomorrow. And our
Mhm.
first question was, do we pause our content? You know,
Yeah.
it's primarily Instagram focused. And so we kind of scrolled through the feed today and we're like, okay, it feels like the room is not really talking a lot about it on this
Yeah.
platform. And
Yep.
so we're probably safe to keep our
Mhm.
regularly scheduled post for tomorrow. So like the audience and the platform, you just have to really look at how the event is affecting the audience on that specific platform as you're making your choice.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. So take the temperature. I would also say that during these big world events, you should be more in tune with your presence management than normal.
Mm,
I whenever things post, I like to check in on them. I'll check in on them the same day that things post, but sometimes I won't even check in for until the next day just to see what conversations have happened. Um, just in general. But when big historic things like this happen, I would say either just put things on pause for, a day, 24 hours, maybe 2 days. Or if you do post things, be ready to check things more frequently.
mhm. Yeah, we just
So,
have to be so mindful about not being tone deaf.
mhm.
Um, and I really like just reading the room, just knowing
Yeah.
check what's happening. I would say Instagram is probably a safer platform to be posting on right now, whereas Facebook and Twitter are much more risky platforms to be posting on right now because of just the way that people use those platforms for news and sharing news, and kind of the reason they get on there is to argue a little bit more than it
Yeah,
is with Instagram or LinkedIn, where you're a little bit people's focus and how they use the platform is a little bit different.
totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So let's go to the second point then, which is almost like as an individual. Okay. Those of us who are managing social media accounts, we're usually very literate in regard to social media platforms, how they work, etc. So one of the most important almost responsibilities I feel like we have is to try to safeguard truth as much as possible.
Mhm.
So what does that look like in practice, Adrienne? How do we do that?
That looks like in our own personal channels, or even when you're, I mean, when you're a social media manager and it doesn't matter how many accounts you manage, you are still going to reach different corners of the internet in different niches, right? Like I have so many interesting little niche places that I am a manager. And all the places that you roam, be vigilant for misinformation. And I think it's really important to check our biases at this point. It's really tough because, all of us have our own core beliefs. We have our own, view of the world. And social media is so ripe for having that confirmation bias produce just uh, awful rumors that get
Yeah.
spun into ways that you can't even imagine. I mean, just a little piece of content that you see that just makes you go, oh yeah, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. That little bit of just indignant
That
rage.
emotional trigger.
Mhm. And because you want to do something, we can't do anything right now. I'm sitting halfway across the world during a global conflict. I can't literally do anything right now. I can't fly over there and just like be like, everybody calm down. That'd be cool. But we can't. And so we do the next best thing. We feel like we can do something. We're going to like raise awareness for our side or our cause or our beliefs or whatever. However, misinformation and bad actors harness chaos and spin it so that good intentioned people will pass on more information and create bigger and more wild rumors on all sides of the spectrum. So even though we all know that we're right, it's really, really, really important to always check this, like whoever posted something, even if it's like I see this a lot, screenshots of Twitter reports, like
Yes.
reports from Twitter, but then that doesn't allow you to click in and follow the source. Like, who is this reporter? Sometimes what often happens is you'll have like reports are coming in that blah, 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 blah. And you don't realize that this tweet was actually tweeted like 5 years ago, back in 2014 when Crimea was happening. So like stuff like that can happen. And then that gets, and so it builds this hysteria very quickly. And so that means what we have to do as social media managers is, if you see anything, report it. Just report that. If you have a friend and they've posted something that is damaging, just ask them, be like, hey, where'd you find that? Where's the source? Oh, we really need to make sure. And maybe we should go cross-reference this somewhere else. It's just really important to take care of each other.
I get frustrated sometimes because when I do have that emotional trigger and I want to do something, right? I'm like, people need to know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I have trained myself to this point that before I share anything, I might even get it to the point where I've hit the share button and I'm like about to type and push publish. And then I'm like, crap, I need to go back and check the source, So I look at it, I'm like, okay, the channel that is sharing this is actually different than the channel that there is a handle for that like it's quoting. And so I'm
Yep.
like, okay, so now I need to exit out of that. I go in, I look for the person whose handle is
Mhm.
actually the original author of that post content.
Yep.
Look through their content to try to see like, is this a legit person? And did
Yep.
this person actually say this? Like, can I find
Right.
this in their timeline? Because we
Yep.
know it's so easy to just
Oh,
create a graphic and throw somebody's handle and profile picture on there, no problem.
yeah, exactly.
So drilling down just as far as you can go to find the original source and vet
Mhm.
the original source. And I can probably say, ever since I've instilled that in myself, I could count on one hand the number of times that I've actually shared, like actually followed through and shared that piece of content because it
Yep.
turned out to be not legitimate or not legitimate enough to put my name on, you know?
Right, exactly. And I think what that propels you to do, I know exactly that feeling. Even so, what that propels you to do though is instead of sharing something else or sharing someone else's content, often what that propels me to do is to, instead of sharing something else that I'm mad about, I take the the point that I wanted to make with that other person's writing, and maybe I rephrase it. I ask a question for discussion, and I say,
Mhm.
"Hey, this incident has got me thinking." And so, but I create, it's a question. It's not like I'm reporting anything. I'm not saying that I saw this, because of course I haven't, but it like allows you to be like, well, I'm feeling something, I want to talk about it. Maybe this piece of content that could be misinformation and I can't verify it is not correct, but I want to talk about this thing that is bothering me. And so it makes it more of a discussion, which we need more of. We need more discussion. I think
Mhm.
that healthy discussion is important. And so I do think that I know that that has stopped me from rage
Sharing.
sharing
Mhm.
and made it so that I've created room for discussion,
Okay.
but that also takes more energy,
Mhm.
right? It takes more energy to like talk. So also that like makes you slow your
Uh-huh.
roll.
It
So
does. And
mhm.
I've had success when I've seen other people's content who I saw and I was like, is that really right? You know, and then I've done the process of drilling down
Mhm.
and finding the
Yep.
disconnect between how they are presenting it and what the reality of the content was. And there
Yeah.
are nice, kind ways of communicating that to the people that you know.
Yeah.
Hey, I saw this article and it got me really interested and concerned. So I researched and drilled down and found that this is actually what that piece of content is saying.
Yeah.
Um, and that's it. You know, you don't have to say you're wrong. This is misinformation. Stop spreading this
Right.
information.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Totally.
my computer's making some weird noises. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
It's my
I thought it was
fan.
like a dog sneezing or something. That's what it sounded like.
It's like my fan going cuckoo. Could you stop? What if I go like this? Can I smack it and make it stop?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna mute
It's fine
myself
now.
for a second while I play with it. And the
Okay.
third point that I'm pushing you through is safeguarding your mental health during this time. So talk about
Sweet.
that a little bit.
Yeah. So during times of conflict, especially in the digital age with social media, as social media managers, we definitely see distressing content quite often, but especially during um, global conflict like we're having right now on February 24th, 2022. So we are going to be met with a lot of distressing information, and that's stuff that's tough to read about. And a lot of things can happen. Like, you might feel like you need to say something about this conflict. You might feel propelled to make your stance well known, or you want to weigh in. But I think there's a couple of levels of responsibility that we have to ourselves, our own mental health, and to each other in regards to social media and kind of putting on a performance of sorts. of, if, we're not an international relations expert on global policies, if we haven't been keeping track of all the news articles, outlets, if we're not well versed in the information, and you don't have the time to really research it, that day. I mean, I would even argue if you're just trying to become an expert that day and then come up with a well-informed opinion and then spout it out, I would say, you know what, there's people that have been studying this for literally decades of their life, and those people are saying things about this. So sometimes it's like more voices talking just drown out the voices that actually have some credibility. And also before mental health, there's a difference between soaking in just terrifying news all the time and that can paralyze you, right? Educate yourself, keep up on the news, and then disengage, and then actually do something. Maybe it's doing something for your local community. If you feel like you need to help somebody, there's always somebody around you physically that you can help. It is very, like a depression cycle when you feel so overwhelmed by all this terrible news and you want to do something, but you really can't do it. And so you just end up reposting, retweeting, redoing this, but this just gets you into this like this doom spiral. And that doesn't help anybody. Doesn't help anybody else. And it doesn't help you. So this is just a reminder to be responsible for the content you share, but also be responsible for your mental health, because there's a lot of people talking out there, and generally we need more doers than talkers. So yeah.
My fan is still going poorly, so
Okay.
Can you hear it pretty bad?
No,
Okay.
not anymore.
Okay. My mic has just accepted it. Oh, look, it just stopped. Okay, good. Good. I feel like we covered just about everything in it. I think that
Yep.
last point you made is not the most important, but is a good sum up. Just, we can slow our roll on a general sense as much as possible. Our brand, be mindful of our brand, kind of slow our roll there on a personal side, being mindful of the content that we're putting out and educating people about how to check sources as much as possible. I think if everybody checked sources before they shared content, the world literally would be such a different place right now.
It would. It would also be more boring. It would be a lot more boring, I promise you, because nobody we don't really want to read the boring updates, because generally things are more boring than I think social media, obviously, and it's entertainment. We want to be entertained. But if everyone did check their sources and made it not sensationalized, the world would be more boring, or social media would be more boring. So
because I don't think the average person has any sort of desire to spread misinformation, especially during a time right now. People are just feeling a lot of feelings. And I loved your idea of what you're feeling is this sense of helplessness, and doing something that does actually help somebody else in your local community can actually be a cure for that sense of helplessness that you're feeling on a global scale.
Yeah.
I think that's wise. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for being willing to chat with me for a few minutes.
Yeah. And be careful out there in social media land.
Right. Be careful out there.